make a start then. I'm only using 3 things today. So I'm going to be using the pastel dewdrops. I'm also using the multi-layer beautiful anemone, but I'm only using the sentiment off here. I'm using the have a lovely day sentiment off this set, okay? And then I'm going back in time here, and I'm using the Alstroemeria Edgecutz stamp and die set. It's one of Lisa's earlier die sets, as you can see by the number on the pack, number 61. I mean, we're way ahead of that now. But the beauty of these is you can just stamp them onto your card, you can cut them out on the edge of a card, you can cut them out so that they're in the middle of a card. They're just a really clever idea. I'm only using the stamp today, I'm not using the dies at all, and this is where we're headed. I thought we'd do something just quite straightforward really, but I just think it gives such a beautiful finished card. Now you can see here that I've used a purple card in the background for my first mat, and that's because I've coloured my flowers purple. So what I would say is, whatever colour you decide to colour your flowers in, I would go with the same colour for your mat and layer for that first layer. I've used green as my mat and layer for the other 2 layers, just because really, I mean, no particular reason, I just thought the green and the purple went nicely together. So again, today I'm using green, but I'm using a different base mat, okay? So I've just put that out of the way. Now we're using well, I'd like to say 7x7 card, but it isn't really. It's 6 6/8 square. The envelopes are 7x7, and it's very misleading. So your card is 6 6/8 square, and your envelopes are 7x7. So all your other mat and layers need to come down accordingly, okay? So your first one, which is going to go on the base here, and we might as well put it down as we're going through. So your first one here is 6 5/8 by 6 5/8, okay? And that's just a very tiny mat and layer, because that's all I want really. You can see if I show you the original that they are all small mat and layers, and I just think it sets off the stamped image perfectly, having a smaller mat and layer. I can put a little bit of glue in the middle because you're not going to see that. Sometimes it shows through as a line on the card, but because I'm putting other card on top of it, that's not going to show. Okay, so that's my first one done and dusted. All right, and then my others, I've got one here at 6 1/8 square and 4 5/8 square. Okay, and these are my mats for these 2 pieces of card, and these 2 pieces are 6 by 6 and 4 1/2 by 4 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to put these 2 to one side for the time being, and I'm going to put my card to one side, because what I'm going to do first is my stamping. All right, now I'm using the side of the mat that's got the score lines on it, because it's going to help me line up my card perfectly square, and that's what I need. Hi Lindsay. Yeah, okay, so using the side of the silicone mat that's got the grid on is going to help you enormously with this. All right, so this is my larger piece, and this is the smaller piece that's going in the middle. Now, in order to make sure that you get this in the right place, I would just put a small pencil line on each edge of that smaller piece of card. Okay, so you've got 4 little lines here, and you know that that's going to line your piece of card up perfectly square. All right, so I'm going to put that down there, and I'm going to just put my magnets just to hold my card in place, and then I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to place it where I want it. All right, so I'm placing that down there. It doesn't have to be the full image. You can have as much of the flower or the leaves or whatever. Just place it how you want it. And like I say, you can use so many other of Lisa's floral stamps to do this. So just go with the flow. You might need a bigger card. I did look at, I think it was a dahlia. and it was quite a big flower, so I would have needed a bigger card, because this size card just wouldn't have worked. I wouldn't have had anywhere to stamp a sentiment in the middle of the card. So I'm putting that down there, and that's where I'm going to stamp it. All right, so if I just lift that up with my platform, and I'm going to use Lisa's pigment inks. Pigment inks are perfect for stamping, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the image twice, just so that I know I'm getting a really nice crisp image. All right, so I'm going to ink this up and then stamp it down, and then I'm going to re-stamp it. Okay, so you're stamping this down here, and what you're actually doing is stamping this top piece really. Okay, so you need to make sure that once you've stamped it, you've got all of that stamp on there. Now sometimes, because the magnets are quite thick, you will just have to go in and press down in a couple of places just to get a perfect image. All right, now you can see here I've missed a bit of the image. I don't know whether you can see that, actually it's probably a little bit far away, but because I'm stamping card on card, I've got a border around here. Don't worry about that, because we're going to move this piece in a minute, hence the pencil lines, and you'll see why. So I'm just going to add a little bit more ink to that, and I'm going to stamp it again, because I want that image to be really crisp. Okay, I think that's lovely. Just move that out of the way a little bit, and I can just get the top of my flower on. That's perfect. Right, now we need to move this so that we can stamp the flower in the corner here. All right, so I'm just going to take that out of the way. I'm going to re-ink my stamp, and I'm going to stamp it down again on that second piece of card. Okay, so this is why you need to make sure it's all lined up. Okay, that's perfect. I'm going to stamp it a couple of times just to make sure I've got a really nice image and that I haven't missed any pieces. Because when I did my one yesterday, I noticed that I'd missed bits of the stalk, so I had to go and find a pen that was a similar sort of colour to this woodland moss in order to just fill my little lines in. So you don't want to, you want to try and avoid that if you can. Just use my cloth just to give me a little bit more movement on my platform. That's perfect. Okay, so you've done that bottom edge, and now what you want to do is the other edge. All right, so we're just going to turn it round so that we've got the bottom edge. Which line did I use? Is that right? Or shall I bring it down a little bit? Let's put this back in so that we can just make sure that we're getting this in the right place. It's a little bit fiddly, but the effect that you get, I think, is well worth the effort. So just make sure that I'm going to come down one, I think. Yeah, that's better. I'll come down one. So what I should have done was made myself a mark as to which line on the grid that I used. So don't do what I did. Make yourself a line on the grid to make sure you know which line you used on the grid. That's better. Okay, so I'm going to put my magnets over here just to hold my card down, and I'm going to repeat the process that we've just done. Okay. Hi Janice. Thanks Sandy. Beauty of the platform. I'd be lost without it, Lorraine, I really would. It sits on my desk and I use it every time I work. Okay, so let's do that there. Just going to move those out of the way a little bit. I'm just going to re-ink. And I just make sure that once you're happy with, you know, where your stamped image is, just make sure your impression is really, really crisp. because you're going to be colouring this afterwards, and you want some lines that you can follow. You know, you don't want to be missing bits, do you? So, did that move then? Hope not. But you'll get the general idea, you'll get the gist, even if it moves. No, it didn't. Perfect. Okay, so I've got my top image. I'm going to take that one away. I'm going to re-ink my stamp, and then I'm just going to re-stamp that bottom image a couple of times on my card. They do give a really nice, this woodland moss is such a nice colour to stamp with, and they do give you a really lovely stamped image as well. Okay, I'm happy with that, other than that little bit there, and I think it's because I missed inking that part of the stem. And yeah, don't want to do that. Okay, we could mess around with that all day, but we won't. Right, so we've got our stamped image down. Okay, now I wouldn't take these pencil marks off just yet, because when you come to line it up later, they will help. All right, and you probably won't see them anyway because you've got a little mat and layer on, haven't you? All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add our mat and layers to our two pieces of card. Okay, so this one's going on here like this, and what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to put myself a little arrow to tell me that that one needs to be at the top, and that way I know I'm lining up the right stamped image with the right stamped image. And because I've done it in pencil, you can just rub it off afterwards and it won't affect anything. You won't be able to see it. I'll lift that up because I'm doing it green on green, and that's never going to work, is it? Because I won't be able to see. Okay, so that's my little one, and I'm just going to add this one to my larger mat and layer down here. Now I've stamped them in opposite corners, obviously, but you don't have to put them this way up if you don't want to. If when you come to actually put them down on your card, you're not happy with how they look or the position or anything, you can turn them round. Okay, which is probably what I'm going to do, because it's what I did with the original. Okay, so you've got your stamped image, and then you've got your stamped image that you're going to line up when you add this to your bottom piece of card. Okay, now what you want to do when you line it up, you see these little pencil marks here. If you take your top piece of card and you line it up, move it so that you can't see any of those pencil marks, and you'll probably find that it lines up perfectly. So you see this image here is lining up with the bottom image here, as is this one on here. It's all lining up beautifully. Okay, now then, I'm not going to colour this today. I will colour one flower just to show you how I did it. All right, but primarily I just wanted to get it done and made just so that you could see the technique of it, really. Okay, so we're going to add this one to our bottom stamped image first, and then we're going to add the other one to the base of the card. So look for your lines, make sure that you can't see any of your lines, and you'll find that it lines up beautifully. Okay, don't worry if it's like, see here, there's a very slight misalignment, but blind man on a galloping horse isn't going to see this, because you've got to bear in mind that you've got that little matten layer in there, so there's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy on where you're lining it up. So, you know, once it's finished and coloured, trust me, nobody's going to notice. And if they do, then, well, they're being very picky. So then I'm going to add this one down to my base card. Now then, am I going to do it that way? I think I probably will, because I don't think I'm going to get my stamped image in here. Let's just have a look. So this is the stamp that I'm going to use. If I do it that way, I'm going to get more of the stamp not on the flower, so I'm going to do it that way. So bear that in mind when you're adding it down to your base card. Try your sentiment stamp in the space to see which way round is going to give you more space to stamp in, basically. Alright, so I'm going to leave that there, and then I'm going to stamp the sentiment in here. Now I'm going to stamp this sentiment in grey, only because I think black would be too in your face, just too dark. And my personal opinion, I think it would be too dark. Let's take that off there. Just wipe that ink off there. Pick that up and just stamp it. And I'm using the pigment ink, and I'm using the cobblestones, because I just think this grey is just such a beautiful grey. And I might just stamp this twice as well. So again, you might overlap your word a little bit on your flowers. I don't really think it's going to make any difference. Right. And then I'm going to ink it up again and stamp it down again. And obviously this is the beauty of your stamping platform, because you know it's going to be in exactly the right place to be able to stamp it down a second time. That's perfect. See, I don't want it too dark. I think it's a little bit on the wonk, but never mind. I'll just take that pencil mark off. Now I'm going to colour these with pencils, and I would be using yellows on these, but I'm only colouring this top bit. Okay, so you'll see on the original I've only coloured this bit. This bit in the background is just staying as just a stamped image. All right, so you know, I just think that it makes it look so different and so pretty. So I would be using yellows on this, because I've used a yellow in the background, and I would be starting off with my pale yellow right down in the middle of this petal down here, and then I would blend that out into a darker yellow, because as I come out towards the edge of this petal, it's going to change colour into an orange. And again, I'm coming off the colour onto the card so that you can't really see where it blends. Well, hopefully you can't. And then you can go back over it, coming back down into the flower, and just bring your colours down and do each petal like that. So I'm coming in with yellows and oranges on my flowers. I've got my greens to do all the leaves and everything as well. And then, just so that there is no sort of blend marks at all, then I would go over it with my Zest It, and I would just blend those colours so that there is no sort of, you know, difference mark between each colour, and it smooths out any pencil lines that you've got. Okay, and then once I've done that, I would come in with a really dark orange. This is pumpkin orange, and I would come over these petal marks at the top here. So anywhere where there was sort of veins on the leaves, I would come over with the darker pencil. And then to finish it off right at the end, I would just come in with a black on those little those little marks that you always get on the Alstroemeria, just to finish it off. See? So you can see that I've blended all my colours, and I've used darker colours on the veins and then the little black marks in the middle, same as I've done on the purple one here. Okay, and then you just take your time with your colouring. You can use markers if you want to. I would heat set your pigment ink just to make absolutely certain that it was dry, to be fair. But then I would finish it off with my little pastel dewdrops, because they do them in lemon. So the lemon is really subtle, and I would do 3 at the top. Would always use odd numbers. I know it ends up as an even number on the card, but I would use odd numbers on each part of the card, if I can get it off, just to balance it out. And when I've coloured this, it will look completely different. I mean, if you wanted to, I suppose you could leave it all just as a stamped image if you wanted to, but personally I think colouring in the top image just sets it off, and I just think it's a beautiful way of making a little bit of a different card with just one stamp. You know, that, I mean, how easy is that? Just one stamp on 2 pieces of paper, 2 pieces of card to make a card with. You couldn't get much more simple than that, could you? And you know, Christmas cards, poinsettias, you could do that with those as well. They would make beautiful Christmas cards. So that's my card for today. Easy card to do, but very, very effective. Thanks very much for joining me, everybody. See you soon. Bye now.